Right, we are live. So you might notice that I'm on 24,999 subscribers. I was just going to go and try and do a video recording, but then I thought, why not go live and see if I can get to 25,000? An easy target, one more subscriber. It's not uncommon for my kids to subscribe and unsubscribe at this point to wind me up, to bring me back down underneath a number, a target, but 25,000, that's the work that I've done over the last 5 years. I started on the 17th of February 2021, all the way up to today, which is almost 25,000. But my idea today is to have a look at 3, maybe 4. There's one of my kids pranking me. I'm down to 998. I am going to try and explore populating Word documents from agents. There are several different ways of doing it, and I'm primarily going to build it in a flow and then bring it across into an agent. But there are actually a couple of native ways of doing it in an agent in Copilot Studio. So there's quite a lot of learning in this one, if it all works. Equally, it might not work, but we'll give it a go, see what happens. So I'm in Power Automate at the moment. None of this is prepared, so I do have an empty Word document, and I'm wanting to populate that document. And traditionally, when you're building these things, you do it by hand, but I'm going to go and use Copilot to generate me a document that I can populate. And the most obvious one I can think of is just to draft me an offer document for a new job, and then we can use that to insert some placeholders, and we can get the agent to go and populate those placeholders. So there's a template job letter, nothing too exciting about that. That can be our letter that we're going to populate some fields. You can see the candidate names in there twice. We've got job title, company name, office location, working hours, salary amount, number of days, annual leave. Oh my goodness, there's quite a lot of potential dynamic values in this document. I'll maybe just select a few of them, like the start date, salary amount, and maybe a brief description of benefits, something like that. But you can apply this technique to any of the documents that you create. Now, the traditional way of doing it is using this developer tab. We've got a developer tab at the top here, and you can insert what are called plain text controls. And because we're going to use quite a classic native way of populating these controls, as I mentioned, there'll be 4 methods. This is the first method. So I'm going to highlight job title and insert a text control, and we can see it's turned that into a placeholder. And if I right click, is it right click? Maybe not actually. If I go into properties up here, we can give this a name. So I'm going to give it a name of job title. And this is a content control. And there are various settings, like removing that content control when the contents are edited, and allowing carriage returns. Those are 2 things that you might want to go and play around with. But all I'm going to do right now is insert placeholders for job title. We'll go with the salary amount as well. Not very easy to select, so I'll use my shift key and my cursors. And again, insert a text control, go into properties, and that was salary amount. And it looks like my kids have maybe given me that subscriber back. I'm back up to 24,999. And then the last one that I'll do is for this brief description of benefits. Again, we will call this description of benefits. Now, there are obviously many more placeholders. There's the name, the title, company name, etc. I'm just going to leave them as they are. But if you were doing this for yourself, then of course you could go and convert them all to placeholders. Now, the important thing for me to do now is to save this somewhere, because this is a template. Now, I do have a SharePoint site open here. And what I'll do is maybe create a new folder. Might be catching myself out here. There we go, create a folder. Contracts, and I'll make it pink. There we go. So there's my contracts folder. And if I come back into Word, into demos, let's jump out and jump back in again. There's my contracts folder, and we can call this my template contract offer, not office, offer, and save that. And what that should allow me to do now is to begin building out a flow that can connect to that. Now I could make things go wrong just to show you. Let's go and create a quick agent. In fact, let's just go create a blank agent, and we'll call this the document creator. The document creator agent. There we go. And we'll get that agent up and running. I see Badaboom is here. Thank you very much for joining me. I told you it might just be me and you, but it's, well, it was raining here in Aberdeen in Scotland, a bit windy, not as warm as it is everywhere else in southern UK. I was in London yesterday. It was nice and warm. I was in my shorts and t-shirt, but not today back home. It's definitely not that kind of weather. So the agent is up and running. If we were to come into tools and add a tool, if I search for Word, and this is quite an interesting one in that Copilot Studio has access to all the different actions, and one of the actions you've got is populate a Word document template. Now, because I've used those content controls, it looks like I've got a broken connection. Let's go and sort that. Because I'm using content controls, when I connect an action to that particular document, and this is quite interesting because I've not looked at this for about 18 months, so this might not behave the way I'd wanted it to. In fact, that's not what I want to do. I want to change it to custom value because I want to use the drop down and hopefully find my demo site. Not very easy. Oh, was it there? There we go, Damien Demos. I think that, yeah, that's the one I'm in. So I can change these values to custom values, and by doing so, I'm then able to navigate to the different properties, drop-down properties, and interestingly here, I would expect this to be able to give me all the different document libraries, and it's not. And this is kind of the experience I had about 18 months ago. So not all actions are going to work directly within your agent, or they will work, but with a lot of frustration. So the easiest way I would say to get this particular action to work in an agent is probably to wrap it in a flow, which is where I was hoping to go with this open tab. But if I'm building the flow, it does need to have the Copilot trigger. And actually, let's change. I was going to do it all from the open Power Automate tab. I'm thinking actually I won't do it that way. I'll do it via this flows tab on the left hand side. Let's go the modern way. Let's do it that way. So I'll create a new agent flow, and that should mean that I can find that flow a lot easier from within Copilot Studio. So when an agent calls a flow, I can add in input parameters. Now, if I go back to that Word document, we had job title, we had salary, and benefits. So what I want to do is I want to match that with the inputs on here, and this will make my life easier for the agent. So we had job title, we had salary, and we had job benefits. And I have done this slightly differently in the past in a video where rather than specifying individual input parameters, I actually defined an array, and I passed that as a stringified array into the flow from the agent. The agent was able to create that array. I don't know if there's a right way or a wrong way here, but I'm going to go with this method. And this is the job title, and then this is the salary. And these things will come through, I believe, into the agent and help the agent or the language model as part of the orchestration understand what these input parameters are, the perks and benefits of the job. And with that, then, where we looked for that populate a Word document from within Copilot Studio, we will go and grab it from here. So is this the one I'm looking for? Let's go to see more. Populate a Word document. Here we go. And this should let me see Damien demos. It should let me see the document library. And that is where I was looking for documents. I saw Badaboom has said I could have got the GUID. Yeah, definitely. This is why I kind of want to show the route of going via an agent versus going through and building a separate flow. The way to think of an action versus a flow in Copilot Studio is they're just the same thing, just that when you build a flow, you are building a custom API in effect, because you're piecing together various actions, and that action could be one action. But you're also defining the input parameters, and you can define the output parameters as well, so you can be very custom with the output. Oh, and I've hit 25,000 as well. Oh, well, maybe I should end the call now. That's my that's my day done. No, I'm joking. I'm sure it will go back down again to 24,999 at some point. Anyway, we'll go and search for this file. It's in my contracts folder, and I've got my template contract offer, and that will bring through 3 different parameters. So we can see, if I hit show all, the job title, the salary amount, and the brief description. And it's just a case of matching these up with those input parameters. So salary, and then finally the job benefits. And then we will need to, as well as trying to scroll down on this screen, we'll need to respond back to the agent. So respond to the agent. And it's really up to us what we respond with. We could just respond and say, yeah, the file's been created. We could pass the base 64. It's entirely up to us in terms of experience. We could send an email. I guess what I'm going to do is actually insert one more action, and all I'm going to do is create a file. I might as well have the flow create the file too, and just save it into my Damien demos. I'll go and hunt down that same document library under contracts, file name. Let's try and be clever. And this kind of, again, just sort of demonstrates the ability to have sort of fixed parts of a process versus having parts that are completely AI generated. And, we're going to use AI to drive this conversation and create a document, but we're actually creating this document in a very consistent way. And as we go through the demos, we are going to have completely AI generated methods for generating documents as well, which is a lot easier actually. But for most organizations, I would imagine you want to have documents in a very consistent format, just like my lovely job offer letter that I've generated. Of course, HR will have their own way of creating consistent job offers. So as a response back to the agent, I could just have a status and say that contract created successfully. If I've got my right number of C's and S's. I could, of course, add a file back as well and stuff like that. But it's all about generating documents for now. So if I save this draft, and then I believe I'm able to then go and change the name of this flow, because at the moment it's untitled. So we'll call this generate a contract Word doc. And if I click out of that now, it looks like it's saving, and then I can publish it, and then we can bring it into our agent and give it a go. Right, so that's it created. I'm going to leave this and we'll turn off that Populate a Word document because we're not actually going to use it. And into Tools, into Flows, and I called it Generate a Word Contract Document. Let me do a refresh, and then we'll go and search for it again, and hopefully it'll arrive. It will appear. So add a tool into Flows, generate, there we go, it's arrived. We can choose it, and it will have those 3 input parameters that I've defined. Of course, I want to potentially have 10, 12, 15, however many. You would do that as part of your flow build and when you create the document. But now we've got these options to dynamically fill the job title, the salary, and the job benefits. If I wanted to make these custom values, I could use PowerFX, I could wrap this flow in a topic, etc. But fundamentally, all we want to do is generate a contract Word document with the job title, salary, and benefits. And if I save that, I mean, I could put a lot more effort into, and I should probably put a lot more effort into the instructions for the agent to tell it that its purpose is to generate documents. But if I ask the question now, can you generate me a contract offer for an AI architect, salary of 50,000, and the benefits include a 4-day week. Oh, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Free gym membership, which is actually probably no good for me because if you know my story, I had a cardiac arrest. So 6 years ago, that's what started me. I laugh because I do make light of the fact that I bounced back, but that's why I do the stuff that I do, and I've blogged about it as well. But free gym membership, and also what else can I give me? 30 days annual leave. There we go. 30 days annual leave. Sounds like a cracking deal. Let me just copy this in case something goes wrong. We'll send it. And I would hope the agent would already be intelligent enough to see that we've only got that one flow and it will populate things. Oh, it didn't quite get the fact that I said the salary was 50,000, but let's just say again, 50,000. Need to allow all the connectors for that flow. It should get a message back to say that the document is created. And then we'll jump across, or equally, it might just fail. But we can have a look at that. So let's go back into our flow. Let's have a look at the activity. There's a couple of failed attempts here. Oh, that was my fault. I have used a function in the file name that doesn't exist. It should be UTC now. There we go. Update that. I'm going to save it and then publish it. And then we'll run it again. So back over into my agent, I'll do a new session. Good job, I copied that text. And just a tip, actually, Windows V, if you're not using that already, make sure you are, or you give it a go, because Windows V lets me look back over the things I've been copying and pasting this morning or this afternoon. So let's send that message again. Still wants to know what the salary is, despite me providing it, but I'm sure we can refine that. Right, contract document has been successfully generated. If we come across into that folder and do a refresh, we can see the date and time, Word contract, and if we populate that, we've now got AI Architect, £50,000, and then obviously the benefits. So that's method one. Method one is using the Word connector that lets us populate a Word document using the content controls that I've added in this document. This has been around for about 5 years, 10 years, who knows how many years. It's been about for a long time in Word, definitely a common feature within Power Automate. But there are other ways, new ways of doing things, albeit those new ways are not necessarily GA, generally available. So this particular method is generally available because that connector has been about for a while. Wrap it in a flow and we have a solution. Right. The next method is actually using something called a prompt. And I've jumped across into Power Automate. Again, that's just because it's my safe space. If I was to come across into Copilot Studio, is it part of tools, new tools? We can go and create a prompt. There we go. And in fact, I bet you within the agent now, we've got a native way of doing it all from the user interface. All these things have improved quite a lot since the product has grown. So there we go, custom prompt, same idea. And one of the outputs is a document, but this is what I want to highlight. It's in preview. When does it come out of preview? I'm not sure, but it's been in preview for a long time. I've done videos about it in the past. And I would always say, with preview mode, you wouldn't want to necessarily go production, but it's nice to know that this capability exists. And what we will do to make this one work is to take our original contract offer template that I've got here. I'm going to make a copy of it. Copy to, and then I'll modify it, and then we can use it for method number 2. So it is now called template contract offer 1. We can rename that one to via a prompt. There we go, and update that. And if I go into that document, we'll modify it. So the way that this one works is rather than content controls, which I'm now going to delete entirely. And I wonder if it's going to let me delete the content controls within online version of Word. It might not. That has finally. We need to put these little wrappers, these squiggly brackets. And if I put job title like that, salary amount, I need to delete and put squiggly brackets and put salary amount, squiggly brackets. And then we had the benefits. Again, I'll delete that, squiggly brackets, and put job benefits. This document is now ready to use with a prompt. So what I will do now is, I believe I've got to download this as well, actually. File and crumbs. How do I download a file? How silly is that? We've got it here, right. Download it. So, files downloaded, it's in my downloads. If I go back across into tools, I can say populate this Word template with, and then do / and that will give me some input parameters, just like I did really with the flow. So the input here would be job title, and we can say Cloud Architect. This is dummy data, sample data as part of our testing. And we also need to insert the salary. So I'll put in salary and 60,000 as part of this test. And finally their job, / text job benefits, access to a season football ticket. There we go. And what I need to do here is change it to document preview and document settings, and I'll then have the option to upload. It does say select to browse. Yeah, I do have to go and choose a document. So there's the document that I downloaded. Because I had those squiggly placeholders, it's already identified the job title, the salary amount, and the job benefits. And if I test this, it should give me an output document, which I can download, I can open, and there it is. And we've got Cloud Architect, we've got the 60,000 per annum, and we've got access to a season ticket. So that is the document being populated via a prompt. This is, like I say, method 2 now. And if we save this to populate a Word doc and save it, in fact, just in case I've done anything like this before, I'm going to call it April 2026, maybe even 11 April 2026. Save that. And then what I'm going to do is add and configure. Brilliant. Bring it into my agent. So the description of this is to generate a contract offer document. And again, just like I had with the flow, we have the input parameters for the job benefits, job title, salary, and this is going to be interesting because at the moment the outputs should be a Word document, but I haven't got anything wrapped around it as to where to save it or how to output it to the end user. So when I save this in its current form, and this again would be quite a curious one to see how it behaves, to be honest. If we go back to our tools, I'm going to turn off the original flow. So the top one I've got here is the flow. That was method 1. I'll turn that off. We've now got method 2, which is populate by using a prompt. But my expectation here with it being a prompt is that it'll be able to generate a contract, but there's no method of saving this file anywhere. It will generate a base 64 as an output, and it's whether or not the agent then presents that back to, doesn't like the salary, does it? It's whether or not the agent will then be able to present that file to you to download, or if it'll simply say, yeah, the file's being generated, which of course is not much use. So let's just see what happens. It's been created. The contract is ready. I can't download it. There's nothing there for me. Not really ideal experience there because it is base 64, because there is no file being saved. If I go into my original SharePoint site, for instance, and refresh, there's nothing there. So we've got 2 methods really for bringing this file back into either SharePoint or back to the user. And preferred one for right now, just so I can show you, I hope, if this works, is to use a topic, because I could do the same as I did before, and I could wrap it in a flow, and that flow could call the prompt, and the prompt could then save the file to a Word document, to a SharePoint, sorry. Or we could use a topic, and then the output that comes back we can present to the user. It still wouldn't share to or save to SharePoint, but at least it gets the file back to us as method 2. So why don't we try that? And this is where, again, I'm going to try and do this all live. It might not work. I was going to use input parameters here because this gives us the ability to slot fill. So I can define things like the job title, and this is the job title. And then I can create another variable for the salary and description. This is the salary, oh my goodness, salary for the job. And these things are all relevant here because it allows the language model again to understand what these input parameters are, and it will attempt to fill them for us. And then the final one was job benefits, like so. The perks and benefits of the job. And I can close that. I've got 3 input parameters defined. This allows the user to generate a contract offer. And hello to Salah. Thank you for joining me. And we're going to go and call the prompt that we just created. And I've done a few of them here. Where is it? 11th of April. That is still today, isn't it? Yeah, populate a Word document. So it is going to be looking for job title. So we can use job title. We can use that input variable that I've created for salary, and we can use the input variable for the benefits. And then it gives us a record as an output. And we can create a new variable, and we can call that prompt output. And in a minute, we'll hopefully get to use a message node, is what I'm thinking. So send a message. We can add in file. This is my hope anyway. The file content is going to be based on a formula. And if I expand that, the formula is going to be based on the topic dot prompt output dot document output dot. Whoa, let's stop with that and see if this works. Insert that. Nope, not happy with that. This worries me. String. This is where I might fail because I can't actually remember now what it should be. Oh. Structured output. Let's try this one. It's not going to be a response, is it? No, it's not happy with that either. Okay, this is where I might have to call defeat here because I can't remember what the output should be for this. And I want to say that I've got it in one of my videos, and I'm sure I have because I've used this prompt method before. So I'll grab the link for that video and I can put it into the description. So that's method number 2, and ultimately you'd be wrapping that prompt in a topic. But I'm not going to save this topic. In fact, maybe I can, but I'll turn it off. We'll say file output 2. The 3rd and 4th method are going to surprise you in that they're very easy to implement, but they are not yet GA as far as I'm aware. In fact, one of them might be GA, but the 4th one's not. The 4th one is the most powerful one. If you think you know what I'm going to do is option number 3 and option number 4, feel free to let me know in the comments. So I'm going to go back into my topics. I'll turn off this topic because obviously it's not working. I'm also going to come into my tools and turn off that populate a Word document prompt. You definitely wouldn't have that in there if you had the topic wrapped around the prompt. You would turn it off because it wouldn't need to be called by the agent. But the 3rd method, imagine if I was just to say to an agent in the test pane, if I start a new session, can you create me a contract offer document for, in fact, I can probably just use the same thing that's saved in my, so with everything turned off, can you generate me a contract offer for an AI architect? If I was to do this now, the agent hasn't got any tools to be able to generate a Word document. So it's doing a search. It's probably going to maybe even tell me how I can create a document. And the third and fourth method are probably the easiest of the lot. So let me just see what happens here. Right. Yeah, it's created me a very generic offer document. And this is, again, why you might want to go down the route of having a template document, which is why I showed you method 1 and 2. But if your mechanism is slightly different, you're not producing contracts, you just want to output some data into a Word document, then under Tools, if I was to search for Word, there is quite a new one, which is this one here. So, and you can see it's use only with Copilot Studio. So it creates a Word file with the given content in the root directory, which I believe puts it straight into your OneDrive. So if I add in that single action, it now has the ability to create Word documents. And you can see that the content is dynamically filled. I could customize it, and in the description, I could give it specifics around the format of the job offer, and maybe even, let's just go for it and just try this out and say, where are we? This is the content of a job offer contract in the following format. So I've pasted that in, and I can see there's already a limitation there because it's limited to 1,000 characters. So I'd have to be a bit more strategic about the description I give around the contract, but we'll just stick with this is the content of a job offer contract. And we'll just save this. But if I now reset the conversation on my agent on the test pane and paste in, can you generate me a contract offer? When I send that, it's now got a tool that allows it to generate a document. Now, it's not going to be in a specific format. Go on Copilot Studio, don't disappoint. It's doing a web search. I might need to go and change the name of the action. Let me try this test again. And in fact, let me just go and check the tools. It is definitely there. Create a Word document, creates a Word file with given content in root directory. Maybe I should change this. Create a contract offer as a Microsoft Word file. Because the description is used by the agent, you'll see there that in a few words, describe what it should be used for so your agent can use it effectively. And let's just try this again. So remember, this is the third method for populating a Word document. It's still doing a web search. Oh, cool. Now it's realized. So it's asked me to accept that new connection. I've allowed it. Let's try this again now. And hopefully this time it will generate, certainly in the left-hand pane a minute ago in the activity tab, I saw it had a URL, so it looked like it was saving to my OneDrive. And then if this works, we'll move on to the fourth one, which is the most powerful of the lot, but is in preview. So this third one, I believe, is not preview. It is GA, so it's something you could use. We can see there it's called that action, and there is a download link, so I'm hoping that the language model will come back. There we go. contract offer has been created. Here's your download link. And there's my offer contract. Now, the challenge with this one is, of course, the format of this file is going to vary from ask to ask. Every time a user prompts that agent, it's going to get a different output each time because it's not using a template. You might be able to provide some instructions in your agent instructions around the format of your contract offer or your output letter, whatever it is you're wanting to create, but you are now entirely relying on the language model that's part of the orchestration to populate that document using that create a Microsoft Word document with given content, but very quick, very easy. So if you're having lots of conversations and you want to generate the output as a Word document, a very simple one to add if the format is not an issue. I'm going to turn that one off, and then we're going to have a look at the fourth method, which is the Word MCP. So Word MCP, as you can see, it's a preview feature. It's part of Frontier. So if you've not got the Frontier trial, you won't be able to access this one. But if I create a new connection for this, this one is very, very powerful because it's not only about creating documents. I believe it can comment and stuff like that as well. So we're just waiting for the tools to load up. This is an MCP server. So the MCP server can create a document. It can get that document content. It can add comments and it can reply to comments. Those are the tools that are available as part of this MCP server. But with this enabled and added, it can create a new Word document in the root of the user's OneDrive. And what else does it say? Provide a desired file name and HTML or plain text content to populate the document body. If the file name is empty. So there's potentially a lot more stuff that you can influence here using this MCP server. And it's even said you can provide an email address to share the document. I would probably argue that you can't do that unless you have the Outlook MCP or maybe the send an email action. But let's go and give it a go. So I can use that saved one from before. All my other tools are turned off, so it's now going to default to the Word MCP. And hopefully, in return, we will get... No, it's got my email address in there. Has it really? It can't have... Oh, it shared it with me. Saved to OneDrive and shared with me. I looked down at my watch there because I just got a ping on my OneDrive, my OneDrive app, saying that a file has been shared with me. So the document has been created, and it's actually been sent to me as a shared link. I'm just wondering, can I get the URL for this file? Now remember, the left-hand side is just showing me what happened. It called the MCP to create a document. Because that information, the information that comes back from that MCP includes a URL, I could in the instructions tell it to always give me a link, but because I asked for a link, it should be able to dig out that link, and there's the contract of offer for the AI architect with 50,000 and 4-day working week, etc. So that's using MCP, and again, it's a lot more flexible in that, you know, it's not like the original design that I did, which is all based on a very fixed template with placeholders, whether that be using these curly brackets, that was our method 2, or the method 1 that was based on the various content controls that you add. So this will give you a very consistent output all the time. If you're looking for a bit more flexibility and, as you can see, very easy to add into your agent, you can either use that create a Microsoft Word document with given content that's specifically for Copilot Studio, and it will throw everything that you've given it into a Word document. The alternative is the Work IQ, which is in preview. As you can see, it's got preview wrapped around it there. You wouldn't necessarily want to go and use this in production, but the power of MCP, this one is definitely one to be aware of as you start building more and more complex agents. So that was 4 different methods for populating a Word document, depending on what you're wanting to do. I now need to see if I can turn that into just a shorter video, but at least you got to see it all going right or going wrong. And thanks for the couple of folk that turned up whilst I waited for my YouTube to hit 25,000. So thank you very much for coming along. And if you want me to do anything like this in the future, any more live events, and you've got a use case, then feel free to leave a comment in this video, or reach out to me. Or indeed, if you want to come and join my school, a community, I will be doing live sessions there too. And you can learn how to build out agents and automations. All right, I'm going to go and grab myself a cup of coffee. I'll catch you later. Thank you very much.